Hey up everybody, welcome back to the Ardu Cycling YouTube channel, where today I am going to be reviewing my VELOGAMES Giro d'Italia team. Apologies for the lack of uploads recently. I have been finishing up my university degree, so that explains my kind of absence from YouTube. But let's go and have a look at my team. To start with, we finished 338th out of 18,268, so a very good performance from me. Usually my Grand Tours don't go quite as well as this. I managed to pick some pretty decent riders this time round, although there were some which I could have improved on, but we'll get into that later. And it bumped up my stage race championship score quite drastically, and I'm now 26th in the world, so hopefully we can continue with that with the Dauphiné coming up at the weekend. But let's go through rider by rider and assess how I think the rider did. So we've got Carapaz. Of course, unfortunately he didn't win the race, but all in all that hasn't impacted his score too much. It only would have given him 100 points more at the end of Tour points, and maybe he might have scored a bit higher on the stage 20 stage and finished somewhere alongside Hindley. So overall I think Carapaz was a very good pick. He was the highest scoring rider of anybody, which means that he was probably a very significant rider to be choosing. So thankfully I did pick the highest scoring rider this time around, which was very useful. Zhao unfortunately was just shy of the 1,000 point mark, which is very unfortunate, and of course he had to leave because of illness. I think it was COVID. I think it was possible that he could have finished on the podium, but I don't think it was like a guarantee. But he could have finished in 4th place, and that would have given me an extra of kind of 350 points plus a decent result on the final TT. Zhao could have been a very influential rider in my scoring and could have got me perhaps a little bit closer towards the 10,000 point mark. But saying that, he was chosen by a lot of people, which means that I didn't lose out an awful too much. Mollema was a really good pick for me. 8-point rider from a climber category, got into lots of breakaways, and he had a very surprisingly good 4th place in the final TT. I was perhaps hoping he'd get into the break in stage 19, which was won by Koen Bouwman ahead of Mauro Schmidt. Saying that, Mollema did almost get 1,000 points, which is very good from him. And I think that him, alongside this other rider who got in the breakaway lots, Leonard Kemner, they were some really good choices from me to get kind of riders in the breakaway. And Kemner was probably one of the best riders you could have chosen. Won on stage 4 at Etna and seemed very keen early on to try and get the Maya Rose. Of course he didn't get that, but he was very influential in his team's success, and he also got in the breakaway quite a lot, finishing the top 10 multiple times. And Kemner was a very satisfying rider to have in my team, and I'm very glad that I picked him. Biniam Girmay, a revelation of this Giro d'Italia. Of course, he managed to get these points just in 10 stages. After all, he did have to leave because of the champagne cork to the face, rather unfortunately. He definitely could have been on an equal amount of points as Arnaud Demar, but that's all in hindsight. I think that Girmay was a great pick, and I'm really happy that I had him for that stage 10 victory. That felt like a very monumental moment. Skelmos Jensen, he was a little bit disappointing really. I thought that he would get more points. He only got 60 points on that opening stage because he finished in 10th place, got a couple of GC points, and I thought, okay, this is going to be pretty good. He got a breakaway once when Thomas de Gent won. I did think that he would finish a bit higher up on GC and maybe finish inside the top 10 on both of the time trials. A bit disappointing from Skelmos Jensen, especially when I could have played it a bit safer perhaps and picked a Simone Consonni and Edward Turns as a sprinter instead, and that would have netted me a few extra 100 points. So definitely something to take forward into future races. Walter really saved his skin on that stage 19 by finishing in 4th place and picking up a couple of 100 points there. But he was again quite disappointing. I was expecting him to finish inside the top 15 in GC possibly. I strongly recommended him, and honestly I still kind of stand by that. I did think that he was definitely one of the best ones that you could have picked, but he just didn't quite perform this time round. I'm not quite sure why that was. At least he got some points on that stage 19. That is like a consolation to take from that. Mathieu van der Poel, no regrets there at all. He was just such a high score point rider. He finished really good in the TTs, won the opening stage, got a couple of other good placings inside the top 10 as well. So many breakaways. I think he got 100 breakaway points, so he got in the breakaway 5 times. I think that Van der Poel was an absolute must-have. I think 70% of us picked him, so we all reaped the benefits quite a lot from having him on our teams. And then lastly, I had Thymen Lensman, who I did think would do a bit better on GC. I think he finished 18th. And I thought that after Bardet left, I was like, well, you know, he's going to go for GC. But he kind of decided to go for breakaways, which is fine. I think that was a decent decision from the team. He came very close, came second on 2 occasions. He got in the breakaway quite a lot. And I did think that he was going to get a stage win and maybe might finish inside the top 10. Alas, that didn't happen. But, you know, saying that, he did get him in the breakaway 4 times. He almost got 1,000 points. And I really can't be too disappointed with a Rensman. I think that he was a big differential in my team because not a lot of people picked a Rensman. So overall, the team was very good. If I had to change one thing to make the team really good, it would have been to swap Mollema and a Rensman for Jai Hindley and then a 6-pointer like Boitlago, Baumann, or maybe like Jan Hurt. That would have been the kind of optimal strategy to go with. But apart from that, the rest of the team is pretty good. Maybe, you know, swap Skelmers and Walter for Turns and Consoni respectively. But overall, a very good performance from me. This is better than I usually do in the Grand Tour. So hopefully I can take this forwards and do well in the Tour de France when that comes about in, you know, a month's time or so. So let me know in the comments down below, were you happy with your team? What changes would you have made in hindsight? And most importantly, are you looking forward to the upcoming competitions like the Tour and the Dauphiné and Tour de Suisse? And all is left to say is to keep safe out there, and I'll see you in the next video. Salut!